There we go. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Welcome, and it's great to have you here. So the question we're asking is, why are we here talking about anti-Black racism? Why are we talking about equity? Why are we talking about people? And what does this all mean in the realm of marketing and the customer's journey? Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Our video doesn't have the sound. Janice, can you please add sound when you do the sharing? There's a prompt to add the sound. Can we do that and then start the video again, please?
So I'm just trying to, sorry about that. So I'm just trying to add the sound to it. Sure. So while I share this, could you please let me know how to do that?
Okay, so.
Because it's not giving me a prompt right now, so I generally see an option.
For the sound. Okay. I can't walk you through it. So I think we're, oh, my opening. Everyone, it's interesting how technology works sometimes. So many of you know who, I'll bring this up at some point during our presentation, but here she shares how her story is that, you know, as a Black woman who is an actor, the challenges of race in the Hollywood world, but not just in the Hollywood world. She talks about the challenges of race and why she has to start a business with her husband. And, you know, that, you know, we cannot, you know, change our pathology. We cannot be watered down. We cannot just live with the stereotypes of what it is to be a person of color. So that's the video. And then she says, you know, and I cannot lead with bullshit. And it's profound. And she talks about the road ahead. What does the road ahead look like? And so today, the framework of it it's powerful because we're going to be talking about the road ahead. Because over the past year, you know, we've had a movement. You know, we not just the COVID environment, but we've had the movement on race and looking at people and why Black lives matter, and how to incorporate, you know, people in our entrepreneurial, in our business strategies, and what it means for long-term sustainability and growth for organizations. So that is the tone of today's conversation. And now I will pass us over to our moderator, Rachel.
Great. Well, thank you, Nadine, and thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Rachel Rodriguez. I'm a partner at EY. I work as a business advisor to privately owned businesses. I help them with their financial reporting, tax planning, and other strategic growth initiatives. As Nadine mentioned, you know, this is a pertinent topic for today. You know, as we hopefully are moving towards the other side of the pandemic, it's a great time to look forward and to reimagine. People have redefined what their values and their routines are over the past year, and businesses have had to accelerate, adapt, and pivot. How businesses interact with their customers has also been reimagined. However, what I've seen with my clients is that the constant and the longevity of their success is understanding who their customer is and knowing their customer. So today, we're going to be speaking about building an inclusive and customer-centric marketing strategy to drive long-term growth and profitability. I'm so pleased to be joined with these two fantastic panelists whose experience and insights on this topic I think will really resonate with you. So as we mentioned, Nadine is the CEO of Brand EQ, which is a global marketing and communications agency. She works with her clients to accelerate strategic growth and brand visibility. Through her People Matter concept, she has expanded market growth and increased revenues for various multinational enterprises by amplifying their message to a wider audience. Nadine is also a very passionate philanthropist. She is the president of the Black Business and Professional Association, and she's recently joined a task force formed by the Government of Ontario to address the barriers faced by women in the economy, which have only been heightened and magnified by the pandemic. Also joining us is Stephen Meggitt. Stephen is the Executive Strategy Director for EY's Design Studio. He's a seasoned digital industry professional and entrepreneur with decades of marketing, user experience, leadership, finance, and operations experience. Before joining EY in 2019, Stephen served as the CEO of Filament, which is a digital agency focused on researching, designing, and developing human-centered and compelling digital experiences. Stephen has led strategy, design, and development teams on large-scale, high-profile digital experience projects, including websites, mobile applications, and enterprise software. So thank you so much, Stephen and Nadine, for joining us. I'm very excited to be speaking with you both. And maybe just to kick it off, Stephen, I think we're going to ask you the first question. So we go to the next slide. So Stephen, trends come and go. Maybe if you could speak to us about what trends you're seeing in digital marketing and what you're working with clients on. What are the main priorities from a digital marketing perspective?
First, thank you, Rachel, for the question. But first, just a real pleasure to be here. So I'm really glad to be with Nadine, who we've developed a pretty great chemistry over the past little while preparing for this session. So I'm really excited to be here with you guys. There's one thing that I like to say about trends, and that trends are one step away from being tacky. And I think it's really important to recognize that trends will come and go, and you will look back on some of those trends and you will think, why on earth did we do that? There was a lot of money spent, a lot of effort that was put into going down that path, and that's fine. In the agile marketing world, where you're making a lot of small bets, you can see very, very quickly whether or not things will work or things won't work, and then adjust course. So I think one of the biggest trends that I'm seeing is a move towards looking at marketing as less of a magic bullet through a big campaign or spending 3 to 6 months figuring out a strategy. And it's a lot of, lead bullets. And I think we've seen that, organizations have had to rethink their approach because, their customers' lives were upended and the business owners' lives have been upended. What's important completely changed. How and where people spent their money changed, the things that they needed to get done changed. And this happened all over sectors. This disrupted supply chains. I don't know anyone that can get a bike anytime soon. So supply chains are completely decimated, but it really disrupted how business operated and really tested their resilience. And so in a way to sort of gain a modicum of control, a lot of organizations tended to look towards making small bets of, a year and a half of let's see what works, or let's just try it. The pandemic took a lot out of us, but it gave us a lot of permission to see things from a new perspective. The businesses that did really well were the ones that tried those small bets rather than a couple of big bets.
I cannot.
What's that, sorry?
Sorry, I think the video played in somebody's computer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
They told better stories and expressed their values and purpose purpose of those values to the customers in different ways and on different channels. And that's really the heart of agile marketing. Some of the if I had to call out 2 specific areas that really gained a lot of traction over the past little bit, I would say that as organizations started to articulate their values, why customers should spend time with them, why people should care about them, it started to create better stories about those brands and align and put their values and authenticity out there, which translated to a better social media presence. And what we've seen, MasterCard just released some data where I think it was 43% more customers purchased from social media sites than the last year, which just goes to show that social media isn't about passive content anymore. It is an active channel where brands can articulate their values in a really meaningful and engaging way that will lead to more trust, that will lead to more sales. In addition, brands are collecting more data about customers. The more they purchase, the more time they spend on sites, the more data that is being collected. Now, that data needs to be actioned in order to create more personalized experiences. So we see a lot of repeat buying when commerce experiences are reflective of the user. Better product suggestions, knowing what products a customer has already made, or what purchases they've already made rather, and knowing potentially which store is their preferred pickup location, and reflecting that back to the customer rather than giving the burden to the customer to select that. All of this drives a better overall experience and greater spend from the customers, who are also, I might add, getting more value with the experience by accomplishing their objectives faster. But all of this is just made better by being more customer-centric. You can't create a better customer journey if you don't know what the customer journey is to begin with. So rather than being business-centric in terms of what do we need to do, and start asking the question, what do our customers want and what do our customers need most right now, is really what's going to drive better growth and better sales for the business. In my world, I like to say that design that is good for people is good for business. And the same is true here. What the business that focuses more on the customer is going to reap those rewards a lot sooner and a lot better and more consistently. So really, the main priorities are what they've always been, driving sales and growth. But to do that, it's really not about technologies. It's about unlocking the goals and objectives of your customers and providing them the means to accomplish their objectives in a way that aligns with their journey. And to do that, you just need to understand them better. And you need to clearly articulate your purpose too. And that's really what being customer-centric is all about.
That's a great point, Stephen, your purpose. And you spoke about how businesses have, used communicating their values as a strategy. So Nadine, maybe I can turn it to you. How can organizations do that in an authentic way, as opposed to doing it in a way just to jump on what everyone else might be doing?
So do you see me, my head was just up and down when Stephen was making his comment. I told everyone that I'm telling everyone now that I told Stephen I love him, like at first meeting, because he gets it. And all the things you've just stated, Stephen, again, is just gives more meaning to what I call, purposeful, conceptual thought on using people in strategies. Like we have to think about people. Like at the agency, what we talk about a lot is people matter. We do not do anything. When we're conceptualizing a logo, all of that, we think about the people we serve. What does it mean to them? How are they going to respond? How do we want them to shift? How do we want them to move? And most importantly, how do we want them to respond? And are we being respectful? Are we being, do we have true representation when we're considering individuals? So I think, when we look at building strategies, we have to look at, have people of color at the table, making decisions and actually seeing that these decisions and communications are being made. Organizations really, we have to look at, we have to practice what we preach. It's about walking the talk. Like, I think when you look at having diverse teams and a diverse organization, we can't just, I go back to the yearbook. When you look at the yearbook, you can truly see representation, right? So when we look at the yearbook of our organizations, what does that look like? Are we being truly inclusive? Are we practicing what we're preaching? Are we walking the talk? And as we look to have, diverse groups in your communication team, Black, gay, trans, etc., they know what their groups are looking for in representation, you know, and so as we look, you know, is it authentic? Is it an authentic messaging? What is the messaging and how we write? Are we considering individuals within certain intersections when we are even writing? And, you know, we can tell, you know, the they and the we can tell whether or not our messaging is inclusive. And then also, you know, we have to look at our hiring policies, you know, hiring full-time staff or hire or getting out an outside agency, doesn't really matter, but we really have to look at the people we're bringing in to tell the stories, just to have the right eyes, the genuine eyes on what we're doing before we put it out there. And, you know, also we have to invest in DEI training for our team from the top right down to the mailroom. If we're putting money into making people think we're inclusive, we need to think about the space that they come into. Is the business welcoming? What does the front line look like? What does the culture look like? You know, how are we really having that space within the organization for true access and when we're in many different environments? You know, all the efforts that we put into inclusivity will go right out the door if one person speaks out of town, and that makes it into mainstream media. So these are the points that we really have to consider in these environments.
Nadine, could you give maybe any examples of any organizations you think have done this well?
Netflix. I mean, Netflix has done this absolutely brilliant. They have incorporated every single identity, every person. They have thought about it. They have not only had content that they put out, they have representation in who produces and who creates that content. The response and results for Netflix as a leader in this area is absolutely phenomenal.
So as we think about the customer-centric strategy, Stephen, how can organizations start to track that from web interaction or the customer's journey in order, you spoke about some of the KPIs, like how can an organization apply that information and that insight in order to track a customer's journey and use that information?
Before I get into answering this question, I do want to perhaps tell a story, that is probably pertinent, well, very pertinent. And it goes to having, a diverse workforce and the widest possible perspective that generates, in my world, we create digital experiences. So anything that's on a pane of glass, you tap with your finger or click on a mouse, those are the things that we create. And I was, back in my old life when I was running a digital agency, I attended a conference, at this point, it was probably about 8 years ago, where a woman who was running an agency called Pixo in the States had a team of white designers and one Black developer on that project. And it was a software design, and I can't exactly recall what the software was intended to do, but the story really stuck with me about having the widest perspective and the most diverse set of individuals contributing on a project to lead to better outcomes. The long story short here is that the white designers, when they were creating the interface, they put an icon to denote help. And when the African-American developer saw that icon, he asked immediately, what does this mean? What is this doing here? And the white designers said, this is where people will go to click on help if they need help. And his response was, I wouldn't. And they were like, well, why not? And he said, well, where I come from and how I grew up, a police icon doesn't mean help. And it was in that moment where they realized, oh my goodness, we are very biased right now in how we are designing experiences. In order to create better experiences for people, you need to incorporate the life story of who your customers are, or the varied perspectives that people come to the table with, in order to create better organizations and better outcomes. So I just wanted to throw that story out there because I felt that it is so resonant with everything that Nadine has talked about. There's a nice bridge there. But getting into this question about, how can organizations track customer journey from web to sales? There's a lot of ways that, people can do this that don't cost very much at all. I always say that the most cost-effective way to redesign a digital experience is to really write it out like a conversation. In every digital experience, if every digital experience is a conversation between your brand and your customer, how do you want that conversation to sound? Creating these conversation maps is a great way to try and identify what a customer might ask of you and how you can anticipate those needs and build that into your content strategy. So understanding what they might ask of you and then providing that info before they even know to ask is a really great way of creating delight and meeting their customer on their journey. Knowing what they might complain about is also something you can build into your content strategy and your experience design to head off, any challenges that they might encounter. So knowing the questions or complaints before a customer knows to even ask them, and providing the right path for them to do exactly what they want to do, that's really what it means to be customer-centric. Doing customer interviews and understanding firsthand how they felt about a journey can uncover pain points that you didn't know existed, like the returns process or maybe order tracking visibility, or things like why they didn't move from looking at a product to moving that product into their cart. But it's not just about e-commerce. Even in a services-based business, what people are really looking for when they look at any site or to accomplish any goal is really risk mitigation. How do I not get burned right now? How do I, do the thing that I want to do with the least amount of hassle? And how do I mitigate my risk? That's really what some customers are doing when they're looking at your digital experience. Those are all the trust signals. Analytics is really a bit of an overlooked aspect. I think every single organization I've ever worked with, when I've asked the question, do you have analytics? A lot of them will say, yeah, we've got them. And then I take a look at some of their reporting and it's just lagging indicators. And it's just really stuff without context that's going to be driving any sort of decision making. I often feel that, based on my experience and seeing these encounters, that analytics are really like looking at the night sky. If you don't know what you're looking for, you're just going to see stars. Stars are beautiful, but they're just stars. Knowing how to see the constellations and providing context to that night sky creates an entirely new experience. And the same is true for analytics. And this really becomes that first step and that foundational aspect of agile marketing. When you're in a sprint and knowing what people are doing and where they're going, or where they're not going, gives you opportunities to adjust strategies for the current sprint or for the next sprint. Seeing how many products move from, viewed on the product detail page to the cart can give you insight on what content changes you might need to make, or at least gives you permission to experiment with content changes on the product details page to increase that metric, which will hopefully increase your funnel conversion rate. Seeing which FAQs users are clicking on will give you insight into the kinds of questions that users will have, and you can make content changes to address them. Seeing the search terms that people use on your site can also help you determine how people are searching for the products you sell or the content you have in a way that is familiar for them, so that you can make changes to how you articulate your products and services on your global navigation, allowing users to find what they need faster. So all of these really sort of foundational things are the key to unlocking that next step in your decision-making process of, this is where I'm seeing customers spending time. This is where I'm not seeing them spending time. What if we amplify, a little bit more on images and video on the product details page, would that move a product into add to cart? Would that increase my average order value? Will that increase my lifetime value of a customer? Those are the questions that you need to start developing when you're going into an agile marketing mindset. And that's how you'll be able to continuously track, you know, what people are doing on your site to how they are becoming a customer.
And I just wanted to add something as well. I find that a lot of people, they don't use their product or service, because so many times I go on a website and I think, if you, Mr. So-and-so or Ms. So-and-so, use this product yourself and you went to the website and tried to navigate it as a user authentically and go and put your credit card in and pay, you would know that there's challenges here and you'd work to fix that. So I think that's the number one thing, is that we have to practice what we preach, as I said, use the product and use the service to imagine the client experience. Because if we do that, a lot of the challenges that we have would be remedied easily just by our own experience. And then, you know, to really read. People are very vocal, especially today in this digital culture. They're adding all the challenges in the chat. You know, one of the best advice that I've received, it says your best consultants, your best people are your unpaid critics. You know, the unpaid critics who leaves all those negative things about you. If you can take all of that and improve on that, you'll have that free advice, and you'll have been better off. So I think that's an important part, that what we organizations can do to improve our customer experience.
Great, thank you, Nadine. Just to the audience, if you have any questions, please submit them through the chat. We're happy to ask Nadine and Stephen. One kind of question that I do have for you both, you know, we spoke about, Nadine, you spoke about Netflix, you know, doing it well. Maybe Stephen, you gave the example of how, you know, having a lack of diversity in a workforce can come up with a negative solution. What would you say would be, you know, obviously there's huge impact on brand, but maybe you could just speak about, you know, not thinking about these things, how that can negatively impact your business and how you really want to think about it top to bottom.
And sorry, before you answer that question, Stephen, I actually had two other points in mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
Who's doing it well. I didn't want to bring this as an example, but I'll bring it up because, you know, my team, who's much younger than me, they said, you know, the house of Cardi B. So you can judge me, because, you know, they're an upscale top reseller, and they truly embody diversity and inclusion in marketing, just not with racial expression and body types and so forth. So they're one of the ones that truly get it right. But in going back to the Netflix example, one of the things that's unique is that they have a diverse employee at Netflix. The score is 83 out of 100 across various culture categories, which places them in the top 5% of companies on comparably with between 5,000 to 10,000 employees for a comparably diverse score. So that their score is quite high, because they're very intentional about, you know, diversity and inclusion, not just within their employee, but within their programming as well.
I think, you know, diversity, equity, and inclusion, I think sometimes they can feel like they're hard to pin down, but you know it when you see it. You know, for me, in my experience, I didn't really know what that meant for quite a while. It wasn't something that I necessarily was forefront. It wasn't part of something that I was thinking about as an entrepreneur. I was just thinking about, you know, staying in business. And what really sort of, you know, came true for me was when we were estimating and scoping a very, very large project. And there was one key piece that we missed where this company wanted to release globally this, you know, digital experience. And we all went about it, you know, in a pretty, you know, Western-centric way. And I should add, like, you know, my team was diverse. I had trans, gay, all different colors. We're all very much a diverse team, but we were all thinking from a Western perspective, and this was going to be a global digital experience. And one of my Arabic developers said, we need to think about right to left reading. And everyone, the penny dropped for everyone. And we were just like, oh my goodness, like we did not even think about that. And that would have been the difference between like a very profitable job versus one that would have put us in the hole. Because if we didn't come to the table with that knowledge and that risk mitigation for our client, knowing that we took into account, left to right Western reading and right to left Middle Eastern reading, in the content management system and the templates and the design, oh my goodness, that would have been horrible for us. And this was the moment where I was like, this is what makes an organization from like good to great. When you can come to the table, be a partner with organizations, with your clients, and say like, we got you covered, and we're thinking about everyone here. That's what really made it quite amazing for us. And that's when we started focusing a little bit more on accessibility. People with disabilities, people with using assistive technology. We see things every day that are a direct result of designing and developing tools for accessibility and inclusion for people that are in wheelchairs or require assistive technology or have low vision or no vision or motor impairments. There are things in the real world that we don't even recognize that were created for accessibility, but that were designed for everyone to use, which creates a better experience for everyone. Things like curb cuts help couriers deliver a lot of packages on dollies, but they also help people with wheelchairs navigate the city. The first text message that was ever sent was a Merry Christmas text message. We all use text messages right now, but it was initially designed for people with for accessibility issues and speech impediments. So this is something that we all get to enjoy. When you look to design for the marginalized, it just creates better outcomes and experiences for everyone else. And the last thing I'll say on this is, the predictive text that we get on like Google search results, that was taken not directly, but predictive text was designed for people with disabilities. But we all now see it as something convenient for us to help us with our searches. So when you design and create experiences that take the most amount of people into account, you're actually creating a better overall experience for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Stephen. That's very powerful. Any questions at all from our audience that they want to ask Stephen or Nadine? I don't see anything coming up in the Q&A. If not, I will continue with all my questions for these guys. Nadine, you mentioned, your workforce is a bit younger. What do you do to create diversity in your organization and in all the projects that you work on?
We started at get-go, as when we're building out campaigns, when we're recruiting, when we are doing the brief. Just yesterday we were working on a national project for across Canada, and we look at all the intersectionalities of how people identify that we can bring into the project. Because for us, as Stephen says, that when you think about representing specific niches and specific audiences, it benefits everyone. It just makes it better. It makes the comm strategy better. It makes the outreach better. It makes connecting with the intended target audience better. And not only that, it just makes for a better project as we look to build and create sustainable growth for individuals in our organization. So we think about that from get-go. And, you know, for us, you know, especially as a Black woman who heads a creative agency, and then I'm also president of the Black Business and Professional Association, you know, again, you know, it's interesting because it's a challenge because, you know, I remembered when I go to events and I say I'm president of the Black Business and Professional Association, people would sort of get their backs up. It's interesting how just the word Black would do that, would get their backs up. But again, it's a part of the strategy that we talk about when we're building the various campaigns, and how do we see the word, accept it, acknowledge it, and embrace it as well. And we do a lot of training. We never stop training because this conversation and this dialogue, it's not just immediate today, it's 100 years out. And so we continue to do ongoing training, and we don't stop with that. And we bring everyone into the conversation. That is the key. You know, when we have new partnerships, we bring them into that conversation from get-go. When we do a mentorship program, and then we also have diversity and inclusion training within that mentorship program as well. So it becomes essentially a part of our DNA.
Thank you. And, you know, we spoke about how you integrate, you know, all these various things that you do into your marketing strategy and campaign, and, you know, doing it in an authentic manner that really demonstrates what your organization is about. As you have campaigns and you're running different marketing strategies, you know, I probably know the answer to this, but how often should you be reflecting on those and evaluating those and being able to, as you mentioned, Stephen, be agile and change? Maybe Stephen, you can comment on that.
I think that when you're when you're operating in an agile marketing methodology, you're really not looking at a horizon that's 3 to 6 months out. And you're not looking to plan and strategize, you know, a very big campaign. You're looking at, you know, even 2 to 3 week or you know, maximum 4 weeks. Where you are realigning on priorities, realigning on what the strategy for the next 3 weeks are going to be, and then putting a plan in place to ensure that you've got the right measurement for that strategy or for that sprint, and then you're able to quickly execute on those tactics to see what kind of lift you're going to get. I think if you're constantly chasing perfection, you know, you're gonna fall flat. If you have the mindset of progress and looking at your marketing calendar over the year, but it's chunked out, you know, with 6 to 8 kinds of campaigns or sprints, you know, you're going to continuously make the right tweaks and the right moves that will show you lift and growth. Or it's going to show you where not to go. And sometimes that's just as important as knowing what is working. So it really allows you to place those small bets, have those retrospectives of what was working, and then looking at the next 4 week horizon to incorporate those learnings and then making tweaks based on what you've learned.
Yeah, of course. And also to have broad representation at the table. You know, you can't do a campaign for women if you don't have women at the table, because how are you going to know, you know? And so that's one of the key elements, is that when you have representation at the table, even if something goes wrong, because this is life, we're humans, things will go wrong. But you know what? We're going to be able to address those issues immediately and pivot. You know, as Stephen talked about, why the one person of color didn't think a police icon for help was a good thing. You know, if that person wasn't at the table, all of that would have gone all the way through, and no one would have recognized that could be a challenge for some.
Great. So I haven't seen anything. I think we've answered the questions that have come through so far in the chat box. If there aren't any more, maybe I asked Stephen and Nadine, if you want to maybe just give some closing words on the topic. You know, we've talked about some pretty powerful stuff. Maybe you can just talk about what you think are, you know, the key takeaways and the most important things for people to reflect on in organizations to try to integrate into their agile marketing strategies.
Well, I guess the biggest thing that I would say is, you know, congratulations to everyone here for making it through. You know, you might be a little bit worse for wear, but man, the one thing that I always really pounded the drum hard with respect to being an entrepreneur and being a business owner was that hyper overdeveloped sense of resilience, which you need to have, where a lot of people would see challenges as impediments. You know, having that really strong clarity of vision and the idea and the passion just turns those impediments into just another thing that you have to deal with in order to get where you want to go. And the fact that you're all here, you know, really speaks to what this really is all about. It's about being resilient, and it's about understanding that growth is attainable, but it's going to take a lot of small adjustments and learnings and implementing those learnings, as if being a business owner wasn't already hard enough. You know, this is another thing that you can incorporate into your toolbox, where you can start racking up those wins, where, you know, the experiments or the hypotheses that you have, if you implement those analytics and you implement some of those things that we spoke about, you're going to start finding a really clear strategy through the fog of, like, maybe this will work. I don't know, maybe this will work. And then when you do, you can amplify the things that do work and you can drop the things that don't. But in order to do any of that, you really just need to focus so much so and train your eye so much so on the thing that drives your business, which is what your customers want and their decision to say, I'm going to buy from this or I'm not.
You know, for me, I think, you know, organizations today, I think today in this moment in time is quite incredible. We have a huge responsibility on ourselves to make some great choices that will change the world. And I'm thrilled to be in the marketing space because, you know, I think marketing is the core of everything. You know, I say if you have the cure for cancer and you don't market it, no lives will be saved. We have an opportunity to shift perception, to make a big difference while we're doing the work, you know. And if we walk the talk in our authentic selves, and we build our services and products focused on the true client experience, the customer experience. What does our audience want from us when they come to ABC company? How are we able to make a difference? And what are those points that we are going to be imparting and living on a daily basis that helps our client? And if we embody that, it's a win-win, not just for our organizations, but for humanity as a whole. And that's why I think when we look at certain corporate social responsibility in organizations, it's important, because it gives us another way to tell our story and to have our voices amplified. Not only that, it really talks about the humanness of who we are. And you know what? That drives sales. It really does. It drives sales because there's a lot of products. I don't believe that what we offer is special. Because so many people have it. But you know what makes it special? It's the value add, the human connection, the intentional looking at how we can make a difference in people's lives that makes us special. And the work that we do with our clients, that is one of the things we put at the forefront. The training we do in diversity and inclusion, that's one of the things we do at the forefront. Is, you know what? Someone can buy your sweatshirt, your candle, your food item from anybody. But what is the big difference that you're making in this world through your product and service? And I think that when we tell that story through your overall strategy or through your marketing strategy with everything you hear today, that is the big win. And that is the plus out of this particular environment. And as we grow into a future that everyone benefits and everyone wins.
Excellent. Thank you guys both so much for your time today. This session has actually been recorded, and you will be able to view it again on CAMZ's YouTube channel if you're interested. If there are no further questions, I guess I will turn over to Janice if you want to conclude the webcast.
No, so thank you, Nadine, Stefan, and Rachel, so much for your insights today. And last call for any questions from the audience. All right. Well, again, thank you so much. And as Rachel already mentioned, this will be this has been recorded and will be available on our YouTube website shortly. And don't forget to sign up and check out our upcoming webinar on August 31st, entitled Simplifying Access to Finance to Expand Your Business. And you can find more information about this and other upcoming events on our website at www.camc.ca. So with that, I conclude today's webinar. Thank you everyone for joining us and have a great Tuesday.
Thanks, you as well.
Thanks, everyone.
Everyone.